Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are discussing a little bombshell that I have to drop here, and that it is that after 23 years of consuming cannabis, I'm taking a break. And I'm taking a break for a pretty specific and a beautiful reason. And I am so excited to dive into all of that today in today's episode. This is going to be quite a personal one. And I share my testimony in hopes that if you find yourself in a space right now where you are looking to shake things up a bit and just get back to center, get back to square one, this may be a good episode for you to listen to. So I am presently 1 week into OCIA, which is the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults. It was previously referred to as RCIA. This is a process through which adults like myself are gradually introduced to the Roman Catholic Church and its teachings. And it is all going to be culminated this April with my reception of sacraments of the baptism, the confirmation, and the Eucharist. If you are new here, I am a brand new Christian who has just fallen head over heels in love with Jesus and the Bible, and just so thankful for this awakening and this coming back to life that I've been experiencing over the last now nearly 11 months. I decided in August, after having visited a Roman Catholic church within my town over the summertime, that I was ready to join the faith. My husband is Catholic. My mother and father were Catholic. It was news to me that my father was Catholic. That wasn't really something he discussed with me. Both of my parents had religious trauma. My mother from her schooling days with nuns and some corporal abuse. And my father, just a little later on in life, he was previously married before I was born, and they took me to a Catholic church to have me, brought into the faith there. And they needed to have an annulment. That kind of upset him, and they decided that wasn't what they were going to do or move forward. So they had a non-denominational baptism or blessing of sorts for me. Throughout this process of deciding that I was going to join the Catholic Church, I did know that there would be this initiation of sorts, and that it did take many, many months and almost up to a year to complete and become a part of the faith. And let me step it back a little bit. Pretty immediately, I fell in love with the structure of the Catholic Church. I'm a person that loves learning, loves reading. I love rabbit holes that I can go down through and to and all around. And in starting to really just dive into what exactly God was, who Jesus was, what the Bible was about, I started listening to the Hallow app in January. There is a program on the Hallow app called Bible in a Year, hosted by Father Mike Schmitz. Shout out to Mike Schmitz and Father Mike, rather. And I was immediately hooked. I had never read the Bible before. I did not grow up, again, in a home that really stressed religion or even talked about God. We were always focused more on just being a good person and loving nature and being kind to nature. And I was really drawn to the teachings of the Bible, what was coming out of it. There were so many moralistic avenues that I really enjoyed reading. They just felt like very much like common sense. I will say there was a moment where pretty immediately I became almost heartbroken over recognizing that people have not changed in 2,000 years. We are not likely to change on an overwhelming scale that would make us kind of present too much differently than the people of the Bible. And I became really disheartened just being able to see how long evil has ruled the world. Little did I know that the world is not something that I should want to be yearning to be a part of. And there are certain faiths and religions that very much believe that their heaven is on earth. But I now know that my heaven is with God in actual heaven, and that this earth is nothing, and this world is nothing that I wish to continue to conscribe myself towards and bend and break my will to fit in with this very off the rail society we all find ourselves in today, especially within the Western world. Within the time frame of me just coming and getting to know Jesus more and more, I just fell so deeply in love with the prayers. I fell so deeply in love with the rosary. I really, really, really love that prayer experience and being able to connect with God through Mary in that manner. And not through Mary, but just asking her to pray on my behalf. And it felt really special to me, which led me to trying to find a rosary that I enjoyed that didn't feel factory made. There was a set of sisters, the Kraus sisters, shout out to Isabel and Kateri, who were simultaneously visiting the church that I am now becoming a member of during the summertime because they have a summer home down here. And that was where they would go have mass on vacation. And randomly started following them. They had like a really cool latte with my cafe that I'm obsessed with in Cape May, and started following them. Lo and behold, they're making rosaries. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to buy another rosary off of Shein or Amazon. I had purchased one. It had red rose colored dye and red potpourri or rose potpourri, and it felt so gross. I'm like, I'm not going to go through these beads and just be picking up these chemicals 24/7. So I tossed that puppy into a plant, and now it's just like a ornamental thing in a plant. But the Kraus sisters had these really beautiful rosaries. I chose one, and pretty much from there, it's history. I've been praying the rosary every day. I think I've missed it a few days since, we'll say, April. And I'm just really thankful for that first ritual of prayer to just truly help me to deepen my faith, got me asking a lot of questions, mainly of myself, why I am the way that I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing in life, where things need to change. And ultimately, in deciding to become a member of the Catholic Church, I felt really compelled, firstly, by Jesus's ultimate sacrifice with his life for us to never, those that are followers, to be in the land of the dead. I literally know what the term reborn means now. I've been completely reborn. I was absolutely walking dead before the moment that Jesus came into my soul. And I'm so thankful for it. There were absolutely glimmers and things that led me on this journey. And it 100% started with meeting my husband, Fernando. God just shined through him. I could see the God in him, and I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. And I loved his goodness and his pureness. And he made me want to be a better person. And I used to think that my deep self-work started in 2010, but that was actually just the beginning of me rewiring my brain and becoming more spiritual, just understanding there's more to this world. I have a soul that I need to protect. And that took me down different avenues of meditation, yoga, all the traditional new age things. But ultimately, it fell flat. There was literally nothing of this world that was fulfilling me. And my love of my husband was like pretty much it. And that wasn't something I felt comfortable just putting all of my weight on, like it's not his responsibility to be my everything. And I knew that there was definitely going to be room for shift in my life, but I wasn't really sure where that shift was going to come from. So fast forward to putting in my paperwork and deciding that this was for me and this is what I was going to do. I decided I wanted to sacrifice something, and I wanted to simultaneously just like jumpstart my life and just have a completely different routine to accommodate this new journey with Christ that I am on. As I started this episode with stating to you that I've been using marijuana daily for 23 years. There was a month about 4 years ago where we just simply didn't have the funds for it and we weren't purchasing it. And, that Wasn't a total break because we did have some edibles here and there. So it was kind of floating the underlying addiction I now know that I had and am actively working out of. And in deciding I was going to sacrifice my marijuana usage, there were a few things that came into play. One, in this journey of getting to know the faith and coming to know different types of sins, there was one sin that I found myself really having a hard time with, and that was what they call sloth. I guess you can very quickly imagine what that was about, but I was feeling so dull, so weighed down, so absolutely lethargic in my spirit, which was leading to me having a lethargic life. My productivity had gone down. My satisfaction in myself and my efforts and my work was absolutely gone. And it was just leading me to judge myself so harshly, but not really giving me the avenue to really expand and grow out of that space. And I knew that marijuana was a big component of this sloth that had been plaguing me for years. In deciding that I was going to give up marijuana, I did have one final little, blowout party the night before OCIA started. And I did kind of poof, as I call it, up through noon that day, which was November 4th. So we're looking at about 6 days now of being marijuana free. And so many epiphanies and things I didn't expect to happen so early into this process. But the biggest one was that it exposed to me how physically dependent my body was on marijuana. I'd confided in a friend who has gone on very long binges without marijuana, and she kind of gave me a heads up when I told her, like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. She was like, I got you, girl. I've done this before. Like, I'll be your support system. There's, some physical symptoms you may go through. And I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean? Like, we have cannabinoid receptors in our brain. Like, why would this be a thing to where, like, I'm now in peril and, like, in essence, detoxing my body from this addiction? And she was like, ooh, girl, like, you're gonna potentially be feeling some things. And I tell you what, it took a full 24 hours and I was immediately feeling symptoms. It started with pretty severe night sweats, which I've had every single night and quite honestly throughout the day as well for the past 6 days. If you've ever given up caffeine, I had a caffeine-like headache literally within my third eye that just bing, 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 bing. It felt like an ice pick just right here, just dun, dun, dun. That was the first 4 days. I also was able to realize how much inflammation was happening within my body as a result of this continual consumption of smoking marijuana. And I overall have had a lot of irritations and things within my body that have been bothering me start to simmer down. If you've been a regular listener, you know that I am a person that is routinely trying to rewire my brain. I've removed a lot of unhealthy things from my life. And gosh, hindsight is 2020 now, but it's so fascinating to me that I didn't consider for a second that this very habitual double-decade habit was causing me not only mental issues and mental, things that I wouldn't be dealing with if I weren't consuming it so voraciously, but physical ailments, swollen throat, having irritated lymph nodes, very dry skin, a lot of just dehydration leading to wrinkles. Not that I care about the wrinkles, but just sheerly drying me up like a raisin. And I was very much upset with myself. That's been kind of the hardest part besides the physical symptoms, just realizing how truly addicted I was to it. Was it like destroying my life? Maybe like a heroin addiction or a cocaine addiction or Adderall. I used to have trouble with Adderall earlier on in my 20s. No, not like that. But the subtlety of it almost makes me feel like it was worse for me than the Adderall addiction because I was able to lie myself about the true impact it was having on my life. And ultimately the true power and control it was having over my soul and my day-to-day activity and who I am as a person and my moods and my emotions. As a female, there was also this component of recognizing that it is causing me so many estrogen and hormonal issues that I had heard inklings of here and there throughout TikToks and reels, and women saying like, hey ladies, really hate to break it to you, but if you're a regular cannabis user, it's affecting your hormones. Like if you're having really heavy periods or endometriosis or this, that, and the other, you may want to lay off. And I was like, psh, that's not what's causing my endometriosis. That's not what's leading me to any kind of problems. Girl, you're crazy. They were correct. I have had some endometriosis like symptoms for 4 to 5 years now, and they've gotten significant. I am now 40. And I do believe that as, you know, I'm evolving in age and my reproductive system is adjusting to the age appropriateness of hormones being excreted and all of those certain things, I was not doing myself any kind of favors by inducing multiple times a day this endocrine disruptor, or rather endocrine, what would we say? It was kind of just like turning on the faucet of estrogen and just allowing it to cause havoc on my body. It leading up to this, I am like heading into a cycle, and this was an extremely difficult cycle for me to enter into because of the pain, which leads me to the next thing that I am just blown away by, that I was not able to see how contradictory this usage was within my life. It wasn't matching my words. My actions weren't matching my words. Utilize marijuana for pain, mainly for cycle things or having headaches. I also have had a number of digestive issues in the past, and really just assumed they were autoimmune related, but am now maybe being led to believe that, again, with that estrogen dump that I'm getting from the continual usage of marijuana, I do believe it was just causing overall inflammation throughout the body and really thwarting my efforts of eating well, exercising, avoiding all of the chemicals and toxins and things, while simultaneously I am poofing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 joints a day of things that I don't know what pesticides, what chemicals they have on them. I mean, my husband worked really hard to make sure we were smoking organic products as often as possible, but that wasn't an everyday thing. And, you know, the damage to just my body in that time, I look forward to mending over these next 6 months of not consuming, which may likely extend itself. But I've given myself the goal of not poofing through Easter, which is when I officially become a Catholic. So getting back to the pain portion of things, in wanting to give this up for Christ, it was ultimately just out of sheer gratitude for the insanely immense gift that Christ gave us in sacrificing himself on the cross, and just giving us the ability to not only be woken from the dead, but to never return to the land of the dead, and just usher us right on into heaven if we continue on a good path. And not really continue on a good path, because that sacrifice and me accepting him into my heart is what is ultimately going to lead me to heaven. But I am looking to purify my soul along the way, and find myself sitting at the right hand of the Father sooner than later. Not like I wanted to leave this planet, but meaning more, I'd like to not be in purgatory for too much time here. I'm working really, really hard here to just refine myself, refine my soul. But in wanting to give that up and that sacrifice, when the period pain started, I was like, oh my, oh my. I would feel an immediate ping of like, oop, pain, and I'd take an edible. Or I'd poof a J to the face, pain gone for 4, 5, 6 hours. And then it would come again, up quick, poof, poof, poof. It was like I was softening my experience to suffering in a way that I just wasn't acknowledging. And I was giving myself that out of like, you know what? I don't need to feel this pain. This pain isn't serving me. I couldn't have been more wrong. I do believe that in the softening of the suffering, in the softening of the pain, and the lack of surrender I was giving myself into that suffering, I do believe that it led me to where I found myself, and semi still find myself presently, in a space of just sloth, being stunted, thwarted. And ultimately, in having a conversation with my husband the other day, when I was just doubled over in pain for the majority of the day, he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I am. I'm just so blown away at how much pain I've taken from myself." And I just wonder, like, how much growth have I missed out on because I removed that suffering from my day and my experience? Like, who am I to remove that suffering? And then I got to thinking, like, women were given that pain of childbirth for the original sin that was created in the Garden of Eden. And this pain serves. It truly serves. Now, I know there's some gals out there with like level emergency endometriosis pain. So sis, do what you got to do to keep yourself healthy and in a comfortable state if you find yourself in one of those emergency situations, which is many of us. But for me, I have chosen to almost raw dog the pain that is coming from this cycle. And I'm using it as a way to purify myself and remind myself that nothing in life is promised. Not anything in life is supposed to be easy because we wish it to be. And I am now working hard to take these moments of physical suffering, physical pain, and allow it to make me stronger and help me to grow deeper in my faith and grow deeper within the resolve for myself and my personal growth and that journey of personal growth. I think there's also something to be said about the physical time that I was wasting in doing, in consuming the cannabis throughout the day, and mainly more at night. I would find myself, around 4 o'clock being like, oh, my day's done. And then I would just be high for the rest of the night. And we'd be, chain smoking J's back to back. And it was all at my behest. It was all me saying to Fernando, like, can you roll more? Can you get more? I want more. I want to smoke more. I want to smoke more. And, the doll that he is, he would say, are you sure you need more? And I'd be like, yes, I want another one. I didn't need more. It had gotten to the point where I wasn't even getting high. Like, it used to take a couple of poofs off one J and I'd be great for hours. And now I needed one to the face to last 2 hours. It was embarrassing, to say the least. Fernando keeps saying I'm being too hard on myself, and I usually am, but I am a little embarrassed that at 40 years old, it's taken me until 40 to see that the last 20 some odd years, I'd been numbing myself, dulling my pain, making uncomfortable situations comfortable by pretty much just ignoring the reality of the structure of what was happening in front of me by just allowing myself to be high through it and soften the edges a bit. And I think there's so much to be said, for me at least, in understanding now that, if my current cross to bear is that I need to rewire my brain and be able to manage myself without being numbed and medicated, then I'm going to take it on full force. Night one, I was immediately reminded why I had started consuming cannabis, and it was because of my propensity for insomnia. If I did not have marijuana before I went to bed, I could be up till 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning for years. Started in my late teens, sheerly out of fear for waking up and my father being dead. He was ill my whole life. And also out of fear of my mother sleeping too soundly and not being able to hear him call for help or need something. And I didn't realize the grip that fear of losing him had on me, to the point of disrupting my sleep, basically without like putting myself into like a marijuana induced coma. I was just so shocked at how quickly the insomnia and the anxiety and the fear came back. And he's been passed now for 6 years. That first night was torturous. If I could have knocked myself on the head to pass out, I might have, because I was up until about 1 a.m. We laid down at 8 p.m. just to give me like the best head start ever. And for those 5 hours, I had the most intense, ruminating, negative, fearful thoughts, anxiety like I hadn't felt in years, had a complete and total grip over my body and my mind. And it was rough. About an hour and a half into it, I found myself looking for my rosary at this shelf behind my bed, and I did the rosary 2 or 3 times until I finally passed out just from exhaustion. I woke up the next morning feeling really defeated because I realized what mental work I had ahead of me. Something I thought I had been working on so fervently, especially since my father had passed and working through the grief of his loss. And I realized there's always work to be done. It was shocking. It was upsetting. Still is a little upsetting. And, I found myself that next day after Fernando came home from work just breaking down and saying, like, my brain is not okay. I could literally not get through a minute of work that day. I couldn't focus. My brain was so scattered. And then it made me remember why I started my Adderall addiction in my 20s. I have ADHD. There's been nothing I've done about it outside of rewiring my brain, but while high. I wasn't rewiring a sober brain, which meant that I wasn't truly rewiring all of my brain. My neural pathways were very reliant on that outside cannabinoid effect that we all have naturally within inside of ourselves, within our lungs, within our brain. And I'm very eager to get back to a place where my body is producing its own cannabinoids and I am no longer mentally in this state of just absolute distress and turmoil of not being able to focus. A day or so after that, so this is day 3, got a little easier to navigate. And, I'm like borderline leaning on Fernando at this point. I'm like, what do I have to do? Like, tell me what to do. He said, let's get you a schedule today. What's your schedule? What are you going to do for the day? Map out half an hour by half an hour, whatever you got to do for your day. What's your schedule? You need a routine. Like, you have been so creative and just allowed yourself to be a little butterfly that flitted through life. And look where you're at. Like, it's not what you want anymore for yourself. So let's insert some structure. So I picked up an app that I have and I use occasionally, but I wasn't giving it its full due. I wasn't really utilizing it to the extent that I should have been. It's called Structured. I'll show you it here. I recommend downloading it. It is made by this beautiful, sweet woman and worth every penny. I think it was $14, $12, something like that for the year. But I woke up that morning and I plotted out my day within half-hour increments. And I set myself until 3 p.m., which is typically when Fernando comes home from work. And I thought, if I can just stay on the straight and narrow and just work through till 3 p.m. and try to stick to the schedule. Every time the alarm went off, I stopped what I was doing, even if I wasn't hadn't completed it, and I went on to the next task within my schedule. It was effective. It was helpful merely because it just gave me a path to follow while trying to navigate the pure chaos swirling around in my cabeza that was just an ADHD soup. It was helpful and it gave me promise and hope for the next day. I also recognize that with all of this insane swirling energy that I have as someone that is so hyperactive, is so productive, I needed to start being more physical. I had really given up outside of walking my dog on any kind of physical activity. And it is something that I am starting this week, going to be working more into my day. It's getting colder now. I'm going to start working again on the computer while on the walking pad. I'm going to start interrupting my day to give my brain a breather and give it a little bit of a reset by walking my dog midday through my work day. And I'm very much looking forward to starting to run again and receive that runner's high that, surprise, surprise, science has found is actually cannabinoids being made within our lungs and our brain with this very physical cardiovascular activity. So I look forward to starting running this week and just giving myself a way to physically exhaust the abundance of energy that I have inside of me. I also found myself leaning on the adage and the understanding that anxiety is absolutely a waste of God's gift of life that He has given me. It is not only a waste of that life by burdening it with anxiety, but it is distrustful to not believe that God's plan and path for me is perfect and exactly what it should be, which then lead me to recognizing how deep my control issues were. I am a type A Biddy. I have always been. I'm a Taurus if you're an astrology person, and I'm headstrong. I'm stubborn. I grew up also in a household where I was parentified very young because of my father being ill and my mother needing to go to work when I was just 11. And in trying to do my best and seeing how sick my father was and how stressed my mother was, I put a lot of myself on the back burner and just focused on control. I didn't worry about my feelings. I swallowed them. I buried them deep. And then I just worried about what needed to be done. How can I help my dad feel better? How can I make my mom's day better when she comes home from work? I have a sister that was younger than me. And, it was just very surprising to see that in only a few days of no longer consuming marijuana, how much of little Sarah still needed so much healing and growth. If you're new here, I'm really big on inner child healing. I have so many guided visualizations for you back throughout the episodes, at least through, from the 200s to the 300s. There's a ton throughout there for you if you find yourself on that journey as well. And I also began doing breath work again. I had a client last year, Jenny. Shout out to Jenny. She has such amazing breath work practices, tapes, and recordings. And I just found myself leaning on what she had taught me to get myself through these periods of just sheer panic and leaning into letting go of control, just trying my very best to do what I could do and leaving it at that. I will say, in finding myself on day 6, I am in a space now where I am not even thinking of consuming it. And I don't even really think, I gave myself the out of saying, well, if I need an edible for pain, I'll take it. But in realizing a few days ago with the period pain and just being like, oh my gosh, I've softened myself so much and it sickened me. Outside of a migraine, I will not be utilizing edibles as well. Now let's get to the end goal here, which was throughout the process of me becoming a Catholic, I wanted to be sober and I wanted to experience the full body and glory of what it means to become one of God's children and become a part of His flock. And I said that I would give myself after Easter, when I become a full member of the church, I would utilize it in a recreational fashion. Hopefully it would only take a couple of poofs here or there to bring me a little giggle fit with Fernando, or just, have a nice edible and relax and just like let myself feel that. And I don't know where I'll land when April comes and we reach that time, but I've learned now that it again is not in my control, and I will very much be just seeing how I feel about it and trusting in the Lord that whatever direction I go, and if I feel like I'd like to have some recreational poofs here and there a little bit to have fun or relax, then I may do that, or I may entirely decide that I don't need it anymore. It's God's will, and it's no longer mine, which has been such a beautiful byproduct of being able to go into this experience. And I really am just so thankful for taking the initiative and trusting that inner voice and hearing, God just co-sign and say, thank you. Thank you for what you're giving up here. Thank you. Thank you for you. And I also want to say thank you to me, because I feel closer to God than ever. I feel very much like my channels are wide open and receiving. They're no longer clouded. They're no longer shrouded. They're no longer veiled. And I am really looking forward to seeing where and who I am 6 months from now for so many different reasons. But I am thankful that I did this. I am very thankful that I have had resolve to not only abstain from marijuana, but, you walk out, you're walking around with your husband somewhere cute. You see a little fireplace next to a bar outside. We live in a tourist area, so there's a ton of really beautiful places like that where we can sit outside of a 200-year-old hotel with a fireplace and, sip some wine or have an espresso martini. And we were walking around and we found ourselves in a space where we're like, ooh, those look good. And I was like, you know what? I don't even want to give myself the out or that pleasure right now when I am in this state of suffering. I physically want to be able to be in a more even keeled state before I even take a sip of wine or I even maybe enjoy in an alcoholic beverage. We don't really drink alcohol. We kind of gave that up. Marijuana has been our main alcohol, like recreational activity of sorts. And I do think there is. Sorry. Sophie, come. Sophie! But I'm very proud of myself for also abstaining from any other kind of depressive. What are they? We learned all of this in DARE. Depressant. Any kind of depressants. I'm so thankful for this journey. Truly, I am just over the moon ecstatic about it. And I made a post about it and I thought deeply about whether or not I wanted to make this an episode. And in hearing so many people also be in that journey where they're like, girl, I'm trying to give it up too. Thank you so much for sharing. I thought it was appropriate to make an episode about it. I am going to cut it here because I just wanted to discuss that. I will be doing a mini series of sorts here where we will be discussing my journey in becoming a Catholic, but I don't want to put too much of that content here. I will be having a separate podcast that I can direct you to if you would like to join in and hear more about that. That will be going up later this week. But we will be keeping it the same as we always have here on the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. We will be looking at ways in which we can always open our hearts and rewire our brains in ways that just keep aligning us further and further with the good in this world. How can we make our lives richer and fuller 1% a day? That has been my focus. That entire focus is what has led me to God and the relationship that I currently have and the journey that I'm currently on. And I know so many of you are in a space where self-growth is really important, and I want to make sure that we keep that at the forefront here. But if you do find yourself a religious person or someone that is curious about getting to know more about God, I will be ultimately letting you know every time there's a new episode for that, discussing the OCIA and what I'm going through and what I'm learning. I'll be sharing the entire process. I will be letting you know when those episodes are live on this show. I will state that although the podcast format of the OCIA episodes will be on a separate podcast channel on Spotify, within the YouTube page, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, I will be keeping the OCIA series within my YouTube page. So you will find that there if you are looking for it, or if you find yourself in a space where you're like, I don't really want to listen to that, you're going to have access to all of the other interviews and episodes that we do, like we always have here on the Make Life Rich movement. My Richies, it means so much to me. I am so grateful for your time and your attention and your love, your comments, your feedback, sharing the episodes. All of it truly just makes me cry. I can't even handle just any of you caring at all, let alone just like the comments and the love that you show me. And truly, thank you so much. You are a blessing to my life. You are the reason why I keep doing this. And I'm just so thankful to be reaching out to all of you and the 40 plus countries that are listening. And gosh, I am just so thankful for your time and your attention. If this episode was something you enjoyed, I would love a comment and a share. Please send it to someone you think might be interested. And if you're the praying type, please pray for me on my continued journey of relinquishing my addiction to marijuana while trying to deepen my connection with Jesus and just really leaning into my OCI journey and becoming a Catholic. I'm so thankful, my Richies. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead. And as always, make life rich. God bless.